Uh, we will be debating under the motion this how celebrate the influence of TikTok with music industry. So yeah, we'll do we can call the Prime Minister. Time is yours. Don't forget the PI preference. Don't speech exceeding 7 minutes 20 seconds. Okay.
Hi, thank you. Am I audible?
Yes, we are.
Uh, sorry, LO, are you going to keep timing, right? So I don't need to use my own timer, okay? LO?
I think yeah.
Okay. I trust my time in your hands. Okay,
How about the
so
timing?
yes, for the timing as well. Thank you, LO, for timing my speech, and I'm going to start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Panel, we're here to celebrate something that's amazing, TikTok. Now, I understand that some people might have reservations regarding TikTok, but what we need to understand is that TikTok has been a blessing towards the music industry in general. We understand that the music industry's aims is actually to help with aspiring artists and also to help these artists, big or small, new or old, gain as much traction as possible to explore the genre and to make sure that people are exposed to as many different music as possible, and also at the end of the day making sure that these artists, these aspiring artists, all and new, big and small as well, have access to some of the successes that the overall music industry is enjoying, that has been so long dominated by only the big players with big label recordings, with backings of big corporations and massive following in the mainstream market. So we're here to say that right now we believe that we need to celebrate TikTok's contribution to the music industry, ladies and gentlemen. How is that going? How are we going to answer that? We're going to explain how music is used in TikTok currently and why, at the end of the day, TikTok has contributed so much to the music industry and why its contributions are specific to its platform and cannot be replicated by any other platform or any other method, right? So how do we so let's start. How is music currently used in TikTok? The thing about TikTok is that music is used in a variety of different ways, right? First of all, music is used as a back sound. That means we give access to songs that are not necessarily created to be commercially success. Some of these songs are just instrumental, lo-fi hip hop, for example, that uh, uh, fit so well to be a back sound, for example. Some other songs are used for memes, for example. This means that we can listen to songs like joget-joget songs, for example, or songs by Indonesian DJs, for example. Or sometimes they even have song covers in TikTok where they can have stitch or duets, which allows aspiring artists to actually show what they got to the global users of TikTok everywhere, right? So these are the way music is currently used by TikTok. And even at this point, it's pretty clear that actually TikTok has helped a lot with increasing exposure to music, right? But what's the problem with the music industry currently? We think music industry currently only helps mainstream artists supported by big labels, right? That means people like Beyonce, for example, can generate a lot of animal, for example, before even releasing, a sample song, for example, just because it's Beyonce and she's creating a new album, for example. I know Beyonce is good. I love Beyonce too, but a lot of exposure has been hawked by these mainstream artists, not leaving much for other aspiring artists. What are the other aspiring artists, or what are other stakeholders that we're going to champion in this debate? First of all, these are small and aspiring artists, right? These are artists with no recording company, so mostly indie labels. They don't have a connection, for example, to take them further. Maybe they don't know the right people, they don't know the right producer, they don't know the right media directors, for example. And they also have limited funds to market, to keep playing, and to keep, having gigs in different places. So they're very, very limited. On the other end, we also have bands, all bands, or bands from niche genres, for example. There's no chance in the current status quo on how these bands are going to gain traction, for example, on how they're going to generate income from the music they generate, unless the song that they use is featured in viral TV shows like Stranger Things, for example. There's absolutely no chance for them right now. The decks are stacked against them, ladies and gentlemen. So how can we help these people? How can TikTok actually contribute to help these people? First, TikTok helps these aspiring creators and these old and niche genres go viral. And second, it lowered the barriers to entry for people who want to be aspiring artists, such as cover artists, for example. Maybe they want to test the waters, show people their capabilities and skills. TikTok provides the correct platform for them to do so. Right now, why does it have to be TikTok specifically, though? If we want to celebrate TikTok, we need to understand their contributions. What makes them unique? What makes them special? First of all, we think TikTok is unique because just as anyone can make it to FYP in TikTok, it's very easy for music creators and for niche songs to make it into the FYP as well, ladies and gentlemen. As of now, the other alternatives for people are things such as SoundCloud or YouTube Music or Instagram. These are built for different purposes. And actually, their algorithm is not as advanced as TikTok's. What do I mean by that? When I say algorithms, that means that when people like something more, that something is actually going to be promoted more, reaching more people. That's not the same thing with Instagram, where the feed is messy, where we don't really listen to your inputs, when they just give you timelines full of ads or random things that are not relevant, not even from the people you're following. The algorithm in other social media is messed up. TikTok got it right. That's one thing that TikTok got right. And we think it's very instrumental in helping niche music and even niche artists make it to FYP, ladies and gentlemen. But second, we think TikTok is unique in its contributions due to the structure of its application. Understand that as of now, if you really, really want to expose yourself to a lot of music from different genres, new music, for example, other than TikTok, you probably could try Spotify, or you could probably try SoundCloud or maybe YouTube Music, right? But Spotify, you have to know the exact genre you're looking for, right? You cannot just look for any playlist and find the exact song that you're looking for. And even if you do, you have to sit through playlist after playlist and try to find the songs that you like. Same goes for Instagram as well. You have to be looking at the right places to find the right songs, and sometimes they don't just appear out of nowhere. But here's the thing with TikTok. Because TikTok is designed for easy and short consumption, you can consume a lot of different TikToks in a short time, right? When you increase your pace of consumption, you increase your pace of exposure as well. And this is something that TikTok can do that other social media cannot do. For example, YouTube. For YouTube, if you want to listen to a song, you have to be looking at an exact song and also listen to the song in full. You cannot just listen to snippets of it. Sometimes what makes a song go viral is when you listen to snippets of it, you're hooked and you're interested, you keep listening to it and you find more songs for the band. That's how the band and the genre goes viral. With these unique contributions, we think we should celebrate the contribution of TikTok to the music industry. Vote OG.
The speaker for the speech. To continue the case for OG, we call the Prime Minister right here.
Coming. One second. All right. My name is Finsky. My preferred pronoun is she or her, and then preferred method of POI would be via chat instead of verbal interruption. I will start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Ladies and gentlemen, not only that I got Stranger Things 4 spoiler from my TikTok FYP about what happened to AD, but I also got a whole new set of recommendations of music, including, the very famous Metallica song that Ellie played that is now highly used in all Stranger Things TikTok video. And I think that was my first ever encounter with Metallica. I know I've heard of it before, but it is exactly my first encounter with metal music. I never knew about, the variety of metal music before, having pop music or like alternative music, being my main anthem, I guess. But now, thanks to TikTok and all the algorithm introducing me to all these bite-sized new contents, it actually introduced me to a whole new set of things that I didn't even know that I actually liked. Right. And after that, I didn't only stop to that point. I began searching like what is actually Metallica as a band, right? Like what was the first time they got established, for example. And this only proves to you that thanks to this bite-sized content that they like right away dismiss as something that's of lesser quality, ladies and gentlemen, can actually, be adding new horizons to your musical preference, right? But before I move on, okay, let's talk about how dismissive OG was to the entire music industry itself, because somehow I believe that this debate has become the long-standing, dilemma about how whether or not being elitist. Yeah, even if they say professional, I would translate it as being elitist, ladies and gentlemen, because like what Nicholas had told you, exactly what they call as professional musics are the one that are only accessible for those people who are signed by labels, by major recording companies, right? It's not always good for the industry, and I will prove to you later in my extension why lower barrier of entry doesn't always mean lower quality. But even if it is, who are we to say about what sets of standards should be applied for the music industry and whatnot? In opening government, we will support having a lower barrier of entry because we want inclusivity and diversity and participation of all aspiring artists, and we will also prove to you why this will make the industry more thriving in general. 3 points of rebuttals before I go on to my extension. Number one, copyright. I think it's very convenient of opening opposition to just disregard the whole check and balance system in TikTok. I know for sure that if, for example, a music is copyrighted, there is a report button, ladies and gentlemen. There's a report button, and if enough people report it, actually it will be taken down. This mechanism has been in place for all major social media companies, not even just TikTok. But even if that is not enough, right? Even if in the worst case scenario, somehow it will still be, someone will be using someone else's content without permission. I will explain to you later in the third point of rebuttal why this is also good for promotion that will eventually benefit and link back to the original artist itself. Second point of rebuttal, how they conveniently say you can still do advertisements. So even if without TikTok, right, small artists can, just promote on your Insta story, ladies and gentlemen. If that was the case, if it is as easy as that, right, I think we will not have this problem in the first place, because I believe that first of all, if you're just saying they can just advertise, where is the money from if they're small artists? Second of all, how can you be sure that this is enough for these people who have no access to big labels and etc. to just suddenly magically just use the power of Insta story where they only have like 500 followers? Third point of rebuttal, how about people eventually compromising on a type of music, right? About how Hati-Hati di Jalan becomes koplo, for example. First of all, it's a musical expression. Why are you you have to explain why koplo is a lesser form of music. But second of all, who are we to say that it's disrespectful for the artist, right? If anything, because of that, tools even benefited from word of mouth because it's more viral. He will eventually benefit from it also in the form of, for example, having more invitations to perform, which eventually translates to more recognition and eventually more income, right? Now moving on to my extensions. Now, first point of extension, why lower barrier of entry, which has been explained by Nicholas also, is good for the creative industry. I believe he has strongly characterized here the difference between traditional music industry that has a high barrier of entry and elitist compared to TikTok, which is inclusive, because because of the algorithm who will just introduce a lot of new artists for your FYP, right? Realize that I will further characterize more here also the kind of music that for example exists in TikTok, right? It's shorter duration, for example, which means what? Even for smaller artists, right, you don't need a proper recording company. You can also produce it at home with just a guitar and just recording with your phone, for example. This helps for promising young artists who previously were like super scared because they know the barrier of entry is super high, but now they can start by using these platforms, even if they're lacking of capital, right? Second of all, I don't think that lower barrier of entry equals to low quality, because first of all, like what I mentioned before, who are we to judge what is a good music for us, right? If people enjoy something that's catchy, for example, something that's happy for them, something that's like stress releasing, who are we to say that they have lesser taste than us, right? Because this also proves to you like how, for example, in movie, not just in music industry, also people also have preferences. But also many functions of TikTok, like what Nicola showed to you, it proves that there is everything for everyone. Let's say, for example, you want to have you want to create a traveling video. No, thank you for the POI. You want to create a traveling video, for example, there is a happy music for that. You want to create a depressing tutorial or anything, there's also music for that. Basically, it has place for everyone, right? Which proves to you that everything will have its own niche, audience that will be introduced to people who previously never knew of it before. Second expansion, I also believe that this will further increase inclusivity, which increases diversity and eventually, drives higher diverse creations. And why this is good, right? Number one, I believe that this will encourage creators, because it means that due to the nature of TikTok itself with high collaboration, let's say, for example, you produce a music, but your music can be used to create a traveling video, like my example before, you cross collaborate with people who produce content, right? Which means there's a high possibilities of people using your music. And why this is good? More people using your music, meaning you have more avenue to promote your contents, right? More avenue to promote your contents means it's the barrier of entry for you to be famous, to get recognition or to get appreciation, because people will look for you, will be higher in our status quo. But even if they say people just focus on the pretty faces, for example, I don't think that's always the case, right? In the absence of TikTok, people won't even look at this music at all. There is zero chance of this music being like introduced to people. So it's still far better in our status quo, whether like 50% actually find out about the music or not, right? Lastly, I believe that this will trigger people to search more gender, like I mentioned before, right? Because of something that's viral in TikTok. Previously, maybe for example, I only support pop artists because that's the only music I thought I like. But because something is viral on TikTok, it shows in my FYP, I'm willing to search because I'm intrigued. And eventually, since I am more, for example, I knew that now I like it also, I will be more likely to support the small artists, right? Because now I know them. It's not just exposed to my bubble of like my previous liking only. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, I'm really happy to support and celebrate the influence of TikTok towards the music industry. Very proud to propose. Thank you.
Thanks, speaker, for the speech. Now, open the case for the closing bench and the closing government. We call the member of government.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, sure.
Okay, hold on. I'm going to set up my timer. Okay, so my preferred pronoun is she, they. For PI, just unmute. I cannot see through the chat box. So yeah, I'm gonna start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Panel, since the beginning of this debate, the problem that opposition side brought to this debate is as to how it can make musicians to be less creative. For example, musicians are not going to create music for artistic purpose anymore, or anywhere else. They're talking about how TikTok is going to be so limited and how TikTok is not going to be so diverse to cater the favor of these audiences in music, for example. But we think that since the very beginning, government has already stated that it's not going to happen due to the diversity and the nature of the TikTok itself that actually reach so many audiences, right? But as CG, I'm going to explain more as to how, number one, TikTok is actually a good platform and it's not going to, hampering the problem like copyright or quality of the songs itself. But also secondly, in regarding of the musician itself, I'm going to cover as to how this is not going to hamper any creativity coming from the artist and why it is even better for new artists to actually join this kind of trends, right? So before coming to my extensions, several things on the rebuttals. Number one, I'm going to talk about how opposition talks about it's going to lower the quality of the music and also creates much more copyright of the songs, similar songs, plain songs and whatnot, right? So for response, A, regarding quality of the songs, I think that it's totally fine, right? Is musician constantly creates plain song that follows mainstream, for example, as long as it doesn't contain offensive matter or inappropriate lyrics and etc., as long as it is fine for people to just enjoy, so let them be, right? But B, there are also spectrum in music industry where there are musicians like, of course, Isyana, Raisha, and any other big musicians who are focuses on creating music for artistic purposes, and there are also self-produced musicians who are probably struggling to be like those huge stars, or just simply do not want to intend to create music for artistic purposes, right? Maybe they create music for living purposes, maybe they just want to share their hobbies, right? Hence, I think that the world of musicians is very diverse, so OO do not have to actually simplify music as only for artistic purposes, right? I'm going to elaborate this much further or my extensions. But see, interlinked with copyright, okay, if you create a song that is similar to each other, regardless it is due to TikTok or not, you're simply going to be penalized or your art being removed, and that's it, right? But this is the very worst case coming from OO, because notice that there are also a lot of singer who actually comes from self-produced song in TikToks, in which it helps them to grow into popular media and whatnot, right? But second part, right? They talk about how it's going to discredit the actual artist, for example, due to the couple versions of the popular songs or any remix versions of these particular songs, right? I think that most of the songs that are being created into remix version, for example, are coming from huge artists anyway, like Tulus, for example. If anything, it is only going to popularize the musicians or the songs more. Not to mention that these musicians too now are joining the trends on TikTok, right? They'll also start to exploring TikTok to promote their content, because most likely people already recognize them anyway, right? That is to say, this is not going to actually discredit the actual artist, as long as this musician doesn't turn this song into something that is very much offensive or sensitive, right? But thirdly, they talk about how you cannot enjoy music if it's being combined with personal experience or content of these people, or you can possibly just hate several contents that appear on your TikTok. Several response, okay, content in the TikTok itself is very diverse. I think like what OO concede, everybody have their own preferences. So if the problem is about, oh, you see contents and then it doesn't match your what you want, you just scroll and there could be somewhere else's along TikTok a video that match their interest, because the diversity of TikTok is really that large in the very first place, right? We do not see why this is going to become a problem, right? Or see, what if it's actually still appear just once in your FYP, right? Look, it is real obvious that OG talk about algorithms, meaning that if OO question again, then how could it be? Then TikTok has algorithm that could cater, right, to the favor of these audiences. So possibly they're going to give you the same exact, or not the same exact video, the similar video to what video you oftenly watch, or similar music to music that you constantly save in your TikTok, for example, and whatnot, right? That's why we don't see that any problems or harms coming from OO is actually matter and is actually going to happen under a set of the house. But coming to my extensions, right? Three things I'm going to explain. First, I'm going to talk about why, in the very first place, conventional work in the music industry does no longer support the career, particularly for new musicians, and how this scenario under opposition is only going to be applicable for huge musicians, as in they're not going to actually support more musicians to create music by the end of the day. But secondly, how the music industry in between TikToks looks like right now. But lastly, why then this is going to be much more better for new artists, right? My first layer, why conventional work in the music industry does no longer support the career for new musicians. Let's notice, right? Recording contract is expensive. If OO demands you to create music for artistic purpose, then you definitely have to create a whole studio recorded album, for example. But if you are a self-produced artist in particular, you still have to pull out the budget for yourself in the very first place, right? Create your own platform and whatnot. But these problems become severe, right? The moment that when you're musicians, but you're not intending to actually create music for only artistic purpose, but also for your living, right? For example. But secondly, there's talent shows and singing competitions exist, but if anything, it's actually everywhere in the present time, and everybody is literally joining as participants in these competitions. So even if you get exposure, the chance of you to be professionally contracted and having a let's say a proper music career, not coming through any kind of social media platform, you'd rather have to win or to be very lucky before you could sign contracts with the recording studio, or before they could actually notice you from these competitions, right? But lastly, right, notice how the dilemma exists in between these musicians of having to bet whether your album going to sold or not, because it is what your career is dependent to through conventional work in the music industry, right? But this can be much cruel, because back then in the mainstream audience too, they will only buy or popularize this or album coming from huge artists anyway, right? This is where TikTok comes in, right? Which is I'm going to also portray how the currently music industry looks like in TikToks, right? Firstly, okay, newly branding artists in TikToks are really a lot right now, and if they art turns out to be good, it's being used from the videos, and boom, now they're a TikTok star, right? But secondly, notice how popular singer and musician also start to engross in between TikTok. For example, Yura Yunita or Tulus, they in fact enjoy all the remixes or variations coming from various musicians on TikTok, as long as of course it doesn't contain any inappropriate remix or offensive remix and whatnot, right? But see, right, the situation now, TikTok become a platform to actually benefit one to another, ranging from popular artists to indie artists, or even to, I don't know, people who just start to actually create music because of the huge amount of audiences these artists can actually gain from TikTok, right? They do not only promote songs, but they're also able to promote concert, for example, or upcoming events from for their fans, or even just, I don't know, help live with their friends to TikTok. TikTok has some many features nowadays, right? But lastly, whether this is going to support new artists and even support more people to actually create music, right? For example, first of all, of course, it's easy to popularize songs to TikTok. It's easy to access, and it has large audiences and reaches, right? But secondly, it also makes people less reliant on producers and don't have to spend much on promotions, right? But lastly, it's going to be a quick trick for these musicians before they get huge, before they get contracted by a recording studio, for example. Because if they do want to create music for artistic purpose, yes, they can. If they do want to create a whole studio album, they can. But the prerequisite for them is how they can be famous in the very first place, so they can actually get contracted or get noticed by recording studio. Hence, I think that TikTok answer all of this struggle by new artists, and the key for these artists to actually develop more. We're so proud to oppose.
The speaker for the speech. Now to open the case for the closing opposition for the member of opposition.
Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Awesome. If you want a POI, please do it through chat. Yeah. Starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. CG loses because in that entire speech, they failed to name one single name that was original and haven't been mentioned in the opening debate before, that became big off of TikTok, right? When I think they'd be able to throw around several names of big artists who started at platforms like YouTube, like Spotify. But their entire case is about how TikTok is so revolutionary because it's an accessible platform as a road to fame without giving you a single comparative to other existing platforms like YouTube, like Spotify, but only compare it to things like record deals. Of course, it is not going to be a likely comparative. Of course, it's going to be like night and day. OG loses because they misconstrue a barrier of entry for those who want to make music with the barriers of entry for those who want to creatively exercise their video making or acting skills by having background audios. But this debate is especially about music and not other types of art or artists. Actually doesn't really lose this debate but still loses to us, because I'll offer some same idea or similar idea, just more detailed explanation that hopefully you'd find more convincing, because somehow this is kind of a narrow debate. Two extensions then. First of all, I'm going to talk about artists, and second of all, I'm going to talk about music, the scope of music, which surprisingly not a lot of teams, or no teams actually have talked about. So let's talk about artists, right? Smaller artists, minority artists that has a lot of barriers to entry, probably artists that don't have the money for things like record deals, right? Several things here. First of all, let's talk about the TikTok algorithm, which has been discussed before. I don't think to a convincing extent though. TikTok algorithm boosts the most controversial and not the most talented. TikTok's algorithm is a bit confusing too, but also somehow has some semblance of infringement of privacy as well. This is exactly why it detects your location, because a lot of the recommendations that you would get is people who are close to you, people who probably went to your high school, who you follow on platforms. That's why there's a lot of controversy surrounding TikTok and how it infringes on your Google search. That's why there's that whole debate about banning TikTok in the US, right? It also detects what your other content you're interacting with and your other internet searches, right? With whether or not with Google searches or things like other apps. It also that if you're going through it also detects whatever thing you're going through by detecting all these other internet movement, right? If you're going through a breakup, maybe you interact with more content creators who are also going through the same thing and happens to use an audio that it relates to. So this is why TikTok tries so heavily to infringe on your privacy and increase more than anything interaction and your time on that app, because that's how they garner more data on you, which will be their main source of revenue, user data. What this means is that, in short, they boost the most controversial and not the best. Doesn't have to be most liked. It doesn't have to be the most popular video with the most views, right? It's just the most controversial, which means the interactions are so explicit, the interactions are so various, right? That if you happen to have a line that hits hard and happens to resonate with what people are going through and you relate to it, you'd interact with it. That if the music was slightly offensive, it will be the very thing that goes viral. This is precisely what keeps happening with Addison Rae, right? Who's supposedly been canceled a couple billion times, but keeps on being so popular. But also more likely than not, they boost the already famous creators because again, they track your other apps as well. And you're unlikely to boost brand new creators because you're not following them on any other platform. Without TikTok, you do have platforms and can boost talented actors, talented like musicians through platforms like YouTube, like Spotify, without the element of popularity and controversy. This is precisely what YouTube does, where it's a starting point for artists like Justin Bieber, like Indonesia's very own Nicki. Tons of indie artists also publish straight on Spotify and make music on YouTube, right? But this is different from TikTok because they target people who are interested in their music a lot more, not people who believe in the meme potential of that music. They target what genres you listen to in the past. The difference with other platforms, I think this was a POI from OG Fair. How do you find them? How do you find creators from other platforms? Like they recommend things to you too. YouTube has recommendations, Spotify has recommendations, but the algorithm is different, and how they recommend that to you is going to be different from how TikTok recommends things to you. OG's idea on mass consumption does nothing for the artist. If you keep swiping and getting entertained 2 seconds at a time, it does absolutely nothing that you heard that audio once like 2 years ago, right? It doesn't do really anything for the fan base of that artist and the actual development of that artist. Second point here this responds directly to CG. Why do we talk about small artists? Why on earth are we, when we talk about small artists, why on earth are we assuming that their biggest goal is to go viral? There are so many small artists who just perform in bars and publish on Spotify just because they want a small fan base and uphold their integrity of their art. Because if you want it to be viral, you would have sought after a record deal. Yes, that's very hard to get. In fact, most cannot get that. You're right, but my previous point's response to that. But TikTok makes people who want to uphold the integrity of their art unable to. A lot of them want to just experiment their skills, right? They want to be able to personally interact with people who find close resonance with their music. They also want there's also tons of musicians who don't even publish their music. They just perform it every weekend, right? These are the people who TikTok will strip away their access to creatively personally interact with their fan base. Because once you upload a single audio on TikTok and it goes viral, that's it. You're not able to gain your privacy back again. Second point then is, what does it do to the idea of music? Principally, how do we judge music? And this age of TikTok is not going to develop music in any better way, shape, or form. First of all, is that primarily is going to be performance-based more than anything, and it gives more attention to the physicality and the singer of the audio rather than the music itself. Audio stealing and infringement of copyright, sure, OO is already discussing that, but this is something that makes music judged primarily by the performance base, how good you lip sync to it, how good your face looks when you're lip syncing to this particular audio, or even if it's your music, it's how good of a 2-second dance move can you make in order for that video to go viral. It's not going to be judged by the music, it's going to be judged by the performance attached to the music, right? But second of all, the full length is imperative for experimental music and changes the scope of music and art and gives it more complexity and not 5-second clips. Previously, we glorified music for reasons such as its pure genius, and it had to be judged by its full length and not small snippets. This is exactly how Bohemian Rhapsody, right, gained such historical popularity. It is an opera and a combination of varying genres of a flow of visuals. Even if you see no visuals, no thanks, when you're listening to a song, please don't unmute. It is an experimentation of varying vocals and the utilization of instruments that people didn't think went together. Let's look at art. Let's look at classical pieces like Mozart, and his musical sheet was compared to like a mathematical algorithm that provides explanation of why it incites a specific emotional or psychological response from individuals. It provides a scientific explanation of music, an objective standard to art that we thought was purely subjective. This is what leads to the development of music in its essence, right? You need a full determination of its full length and not just 5-second clips, right? It's not just purely entertainment, but it's also art that has to be judged by more than how viral it could get. Lastly, is that deep and personal resonance of music is what makes it good art. Even utility-based music such as national anthems or marches, or the types of music where you have very deep and necessitates full length, right? It's to tell the full story of that particular piece. That has to be built up, and that has to have like some sort of build up, and it cannot be misconstrued into 5-second clips that's attached to a performance that's only judged by its meme and viral potential, right? It also has to be judged by things like, how does it make you feel? What is the psychological thing that it incites from you? What story does it tell, even if it doesn't have any visuals attached to it specifically? These are the things that don't lead to the development of music. This is the things that makes us backtrack in its development. Vote for CO.
Done is the first speech. Now to close the government bench as a whole and the CG case, we call the government prepare.
A quick second, please. I need to plug in my laptop's charger.
Okay.
Okay, am I audible?
Yes, sure.
All right, I'm setting the personal timer now. Oh, my preferred method of PLI is through the chat box. Please do not unmute yourself. I do not have a preferred gender pronoun. Any are fine. I'm going to begin my speech now. In 3, 2, 1. Panels, to begin my speech, let's take a look at the clear problems and issues coming from both sides of opposition in today's debate. Beginning from what we have seen coming the most from opening opposition, and then I will also tackle the case of closing opposition. Firstly, let's talk about their idea of how they tell you that music becomes less relatable due to the existence of TikTok and its influence on the music industry. 4 points under this. Firstly, they never explain why this is inherent or why relatable music is necessary for the music industry, or rather they claim to be not relatable is going to harm or hamper the music industry in any ways whatsoever. We have not seen any analysis on this coming from them, simply them saying that music is going to become less relatable, right? But second point, there was a lack of elaboration as to why this quote unquote less relatable music is an issue to listeners, not just the music industry itself, because especially when the status quo isn't true to this claim. This kind of music is so popular because of how there is a demand for it. People just want to have a fun, catchy song to listen to, or a song that they can vibe and dance to, or listen with their friends. Or sometimes people simply want to listen to the same music that they know other people are listening to, which that in itself can create a sense of relatability, right? When people know their that. On the third point, we also think it is an unfair assertion from them to claim that popular music is not relatable in itself, because one of the reasons that it has become so popular in the first place is because it usually presents general and very easy to understand messages and meanings so that it can reach a wider range of audience, right? The messages that we see can be such as love, self-empowerment, feelings of happiness, and so on and so forth, so that it can become more easily relatable to the average person, right? But lastly, the repetitive music that they are so adamant to be advocating against exists regardless of TikTok's influence, right? Because the capitalization on the music industry already has the interest of maximum monetary gain to begin with, especially when it is in the hands of big corporates in the conventional terms. So it is going to be unavoidable at the end of the day that these artists and labels try to create songs that are going to be the next big thing based on what is already popular and based on what the market already demands for and what is, frequently listened to, right? But sure, let's bite the bullet and let's be charitable towards the opposition's case. Let's say that the music scene is going to be oversaturated with this kind of, repetitiveness that they claim will be an issue, since they are so adamant on portraying it as one. But even then, we don't think this is a bad thing at all, as my first speaker has already debunked to you as well. How, firstly, majority of people still like it regardless. And secondly, there will always be artists and music creators who will continuously cater to a certain niche or a certain non-mainstream interest or a certain genre that is not as popular. And TikTok actually makes this even more possible with both its unique algorithm as well as its widespread reach, right? And again, aside government doesn't like this kind of less relatable music, then the algorithm would simply pick up on that and show the viewer more of what they actually like, right? So this their own concern is actually completely solvable on our side of the debate. So this argument can be disregarded completely. But also we have been seeing lack of substance coming from their side. 2 points under this. Firstly, they love to advocate for different platforms such as Spotify and such, right? And they keep going in circles of how these other apps are more beneficial for the music industry and so on and so forth, even though it has already been debunked exactly why these other apps aren't as contributive and don't have the unique traits that TikTok has, right? And secondly, they are underestimating how difficult and ludicrous it can be to promote and advertise music, especially when you are an aspiring artist, right? Which is something that TikTok actually makes much more affordable and accessible. And it is recognized as the best tool to promote yourself and gain an audience because of how it operates, right? This also incentivizes people to actually try to, release their own music or try to pursue their dreams, which is something that was much more harder to do or even think of doing before TikTok's appearance. But now people can simply download it on their phone and put out their music on the app until it reaches someone's FYP, right? And do take note that having more people making music and incentivizing more people to, produce their own songs, for example, can further increase the spectrum of music genres and songs being produced, right? Again, this contradicts the point that opening opposition tried to run with in their case, and that I have already explained about previously. But now, to continue with an analysis of closing opposition's case, firstly, they talk to you about how building a fan base is. Difficult on TikTok, right? It's very generalized and assumptive because it's very ironic when you think about it, because TikTok actually helps build a fan base to begin with. These kinds of snippets that you can see crossing your FYP is going to raise curiosity, right? And this is why we see some artists have more than one song that go trending, for example, because when people see this kind of snippet, it elicits a curiosity in them and makes them want to, find out more about this song or find out more about the creator, for instance, especially because TikTok doesn't only offer you a sound, it also offers videos that go along with the song, right? The artists can share their personal experience writing the song. They can talk about, their personal background and so on and so forth that, can create the sense of relatability and pull an audience and create a fan base, right? But other than that, they also talk to you about how there are small artists who simply don't want to be viral, right? There are small artists who sing in bars and cafes and don't want to go viral, but we don't really understand how this is relevant to debate because neither side is really going to hamper their choice. And I know why that was included. But secondly, they talk to you about privacy. But the thing is, we need to take note that in the status quo, some people care more about accessibility and enjoyment rather than privacy, right? For example, this is why we can see people who still use apps like, for example, Instagram and enjoy watching videos for their entertainment instead of actually keeping a closer watch on their privacy and such and so on and so forth. Because some people simply want to keep up with trends or know what is popular or have an easy and accessible way to get entertainment at the touch of their fingertips. So if and other than that, even if there are any problems or breaches happening, then there will definitely be a call out, and such as, for example, the issue with the data breach case from Facebook and so on and so forth. This is why this is the case that we are very proud to propose.
Let me speaker for the speech. Now, lastly, to close the opposition case and the debate is full, we call the opposition with curtain.
Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
POI, unmute yourself. Okay, I will start my speech in 3, 2. CEO is happy to concede that TikTok has the potential of virality that is unfounded in any other platform, but we don't understand the arguments coming from GovBench. Why then you will have the audience you want, the dedication to building up a fan base that CEO champions? I think sure, curiosity happens, but these people won't check up on you more when it's so easy to scroll over and check another TikTok for your own entertainment. Under GovBench, these forms of long-term benefits don't happen. OO fails to completely characterize government's points. I think their pitfall is talking about things like copyright, etc., without explaining the real impacts and benefits and significance within this debate it has on music. CO is the only side to tell you two things: that we champion sustainable growth through YouTube and Spotify. It's so much better and it's exclusive under our side. But secondly, the longevity and quality of reasonable music when it's genuinely judged for its full longevity instead of a tidbit, it provides better fulfillment for the artist and better development of music. These two things no one has answered before. 3 points of framing before I move on to my main substantive. Firstly, I think that the smaller artists are protecting are most likely going to be indie artists with unique sounds. If you're a rapper, a pop artist, etc., there are much easier career paths to take through underground or record labels. You don't need this. It's indie artists with unique sounds. So yes, CG, we agree on that, but the audience for indie artists will always exist under both sides of the house. These people are there are people who are tailored and who like these unique sounds, and people are satisfied with this. But if government bench wants it to be bigger in that sense, I'm going to show you why TikTok only harms this. Yeah, we like that. It's much lower than we agree with CEO. There are artists who choose to not have labels, but I don't see how under your side you help them whatsoever through TikTok. But secondly, I don't understand the diversity and awareness of different types of music. People people will always like what they like, and if there's a taste that they don't know, I think they can discover that anywhere else easily. Literally through Spotify having recommended systems and other forms of media. Literally an example of Metallica got big because of Stranger Things and not TikTok. So I don't see how this is exclusive to government. But thirdly, I think the dominance of label and richer musicians is a symmetrical burden under both sides of the house. Exactly when you celebrate TikTok, the major record labels won't sit idly and just do nothing. It looks like literally major record deals like Sony promoting through TikTok. I don't understand then how the smaller artists can pay to afford more ads, more recognizability in these artists under government side. That they never characterized and answered that burden under government. First issue then, how do you protect smaller artists? CO's argument is clear. The moment you rely on platforms such as YouTube and Spotify, something that's already done in status quo, it's so much easier to create merit-based, slower-based community where people like your music and will always listen to you. You slowly grow that thing, and that's much more to happen under our side. The problem under government's bench, when you take this massive virality in the off chance that you do get it, you create unsustainable growth where you can't maintain your style and music, and it's so bad because I think people will end up not liking you in the end. The real comparative under their side is the moment you centralize small artist development on TikTok, it's so much worse because smaller artists who are already fine with like a smaller fan base, with the new majority of new listeners, try to we're already fine with using YouTube and Spotify, etc. Can't use those things. The moment when major audiences try to use them in TikTok to find new music, I think that harms smaller artists much more under the government side. That's exclusive, and that's why that argument is exclusive under government. But look what they respond, right? CG says that popular and indie artists can use TikTok like together and coordinate and like promote their music and concerts there. 3 responses here. Firstly, it's not true that this coordination will happen. I think majority of artists will want to go to Ed Sheeran's, to Dua Lipa, because you can see literally TikTok viral sounds are mostly these big time songs because people are more recognizable. You see Ed Sheeran, you think, oh, I already know that guy. I know the song's gonna be good. I'm gonna make duets out of it. They have experts. These artists have experts who can tailor made their songs so it goes viral. These types of things are big time artists will always have the edge against smaller artists, especially in TikTok. I don't see how you can ever try to go against them at all. But even if you can somehow match up, the ability to promote won't happen. Exactly when TikTok is so affordable to everyone, as smaller artists, everyone will be trying to promote as well. I don't see if there's specific ways for TikTok to let one person to shine when there's literally millions of other indie artists who are just as valid as you trying to promote. I don't see how you can provide something for a generation, especially when like the audience is trying to entertain, not trying to go to concerts. It's not a music-centric audience in TikTok. But I think lastly, at the very least under our sides, the benefit is symmetrical. The moment that you can still have and cater to your own indie-based audience, these types of audience will still exist under both sides. We protect that and make sure that these people get what they want. I'm going to show you under their side. These audience will not somehow be there directly into so much worse through TikTok and data asymmetry. B then, OG says that TikTok lets smaller artists be found through virality in FYP. The response, it's not true that it's that easy to attain this virality. I think they simplify how this happens. Youth music that can be reposted through skits, catchiness, etc. Most people are used to. Exactly because of these things, you as an independent artist with a unique sound won't prosper. I think that this likelihood of like being able to do this is very unlikely. But if you try to do that, you're much more likely to be unhappy, right? Because you're making songs you don't want to make. Like that type of things won't reflect kindly on your character. You want to make a unique sounds. But even if you get the virality, it's not going to last because your listeners aren't liking your sound. It's because you're viral. It's because you duetted to it. It's because they saw it one time. You're unlikely to reach your long-time audience. Sure, CG snippets create curiosity, but they don't give likelihood as to why people will like it when you simply scroll away or like listen to it for like one day and move on. We clearly proved to you in this issue that in the very worst case on the opposition side, these musicians can have their base time fan base if they're that good. Under your side, you undermine musicians who are dedicated and good with unique sounds the moment you do these things. I think the framing is that your success as an artist is an uncertainty that either side can claim. At the very least, under opposition CO side, when it's smaller, less virality, you have long-term sustainability as a small artist. You built that fame. Under government's bench, when you attend a virality and you sign label deals with unsustainable growth and unsustainable numbers that you can't maintain, you're more likely to be blacklisted in the industry. You lose any form of long-term development. Second issue then, the essence of music as art. CO's exclusive harm on TikTok is clear. The moment the entire music industry and new music is dependent on TikTok, your development is simply based on what's controversial, what's popping. You don't have nuanced music that people judge through its whole longevity. Music is under our side is better able to be judged and understood the moment that it's not judged on simple tidbits that popped up on TikTok, but the entire thing that can only happen when people directly have immediate access to it. I think that on our gov side, people won't even be aware of it. Majority of people won't be aware of it. They'll just simply look at one side and think, oh, that's cool. So when CG says that relatable music is not harmful, they oversimplify CO's point that it's much more than about simple relatability. It's more about the longevity and the growth of music itself and how nuanced and emotional it is. But secondly, look at the harms of their comparative. 3 harms. Not only is a song like three ways that it's harmful. Not only is a song only judged by what's viral, it leads to a lot of misunderstanding in music. It leads to a lot of misunderstanding in music. That's to say that like, oh, people we'll look at this tidbit and think this song's about that, but it's really not about what you meant it to be. But the main standards, but secondly, the main standards of music is making it look like viral and catchy. So and like it gets what you want. So even for example, smaller artists are able to make music under their side. They will put into stress of what needs to be viral with tiny tidbits, and they will have the ability to put their emotions into the songs they want to. The impact is simple. Not only does it ruin the evolution and development of music in the long run when people try to pander to this algorithm, the people who are making music themselves, who want to use their art to the fullest extent to convey emotions, feel constrained. I don't think indie artists will like when they're trying to be emotional. They're not allowed to be emotional and share their feelings, and when they make the same catchy sounds to ever attain some form of like success. This easily looks like in a status quo where celebrated records are literally forcing their musicians to make unfeeling bumped up music that will pop up on TikTok. That's the exclusive harm under government side. But then CA CG tries to say that popular music is completely fine to be promoted. Two responses. I don't understand this point. If some artists want to make these types of music is fine, we're to tell you that on our side there's like audience separation, but on your side, audience separation is much more harmed the moment that the people who enjoy indie music are redirected by TikToks who know what's popping off, who knows and infringe on your data and consumptions. They overwhelm your music consumption based on what's popping. You completely change on what you know. You don't ever get to recognize the people who are smaller time. Under your side, you ruin the audience and the longevity of music itself. Vote CO.
In this beautiful speech and the debate as a whole. So because this is a silent round, I think like that's basically it for the preliminary round for everyone. Congrats for making it this far. I think all of you can make it going back to the just simply leave the Zoom, I guess.